April snow showers. Flakes are falling up and down the Front Range and the high country, creating tough conditions for drivers.
I'm Sloan Dickey. Coming up, what you need to know about driving conditions and road closures right now.
Pulling back from a powerful sedative, Aurora Fire takes new steps to steer clear of ketamine.
It pulls people apart.
Taking stock of the pain.
We need to focus on solutions.
Nearly 1 year after racial justice protests rocked Denver, the city's police chief says he's ready for lasting change.
The Black community, we have never had time to heal.
It all comes amid fresh protests against police brutality across the nation.
We realize that this could happen to any one of us at any time.
Boy, do we have heavy, wet snow coming down in the metro right now. Roads are slick and sloppy. If you have to drive tonight, do be careful out there.
Just in the last 40 minutes, I-70 reopened in both directions. It had been shut down because of multiple vehicles stuck in the Morrison area. Then to Highway 285, drivers heading for Denver are being held up right now between Aspen Park and Windy Point because of multiple crashes.
Thornton, Boulder, and Broomfield are all on accident alert right now. If you get into a crash, no one's hurt. Just exchange insurance details, get yourself home. Police will not respond. And nearly 7,000 homes lost power in the metro less than 2 hours ago, and the lights are now back on again for most. Good evening and welcome to Denver7 News at 10 on this first Alert Action Day. I'm Ann Trujillo.
And I'm Shannon Ogden. We have live team coverage for you tonight to keep you ahead of this storm. Denver7 Sloan Dickey is taking a look at conditions on the road.
First, we want to check in with Denver7 Chief Meteorologist Mike Nelson. And Mike, this storm has been cranking for hours now, and we're expecting snow through the morning commute.
We are indeed, and look at some of the totals we've had so far. A foot of snow up at Aspen Park. Genesee's had 8, Ken Carroll at 7, and we've had 4 to 5 inches in the downtown area, about 5 to 6 on the north side of the metro, a little less down toward Aurora. You can see all the snow across the eastern part of the state. Some thunder and lightning out there as well, south of Lyman. Winter weather advisories in effect until noon. The heaviest snows are starting to shift a little bit to the east of the metro now, so our snows will be a bit lighter for the rest of the night while the eastern plains catch the brunt of it. They'll have some thunder and lightning out there and some snow rates at 1 to 2 inches per hour. Around here, lighter snows, slushy roads, and a wet, cold day is on the way for tomorrow. It's certainly a snowy, cold night tonight. Let's check in with Sloan Dickey up on I-70 in the Evergreen area.
Well, Mike, the good news is that I-70 is open in both directions, but it kind of ends just about there. I'm going to take a step out so you can take a look at what I-70 looks like right now. It's pretty dead out there, and that's because the conditions are so slick on the roads. It's not a whole lot of snow, maybe 2 to 3 inches that we've seen about right here, but it's very slick snow. We experienced that driving back towards Denver. We saw that some cars were sliding on the roads, causing very dangerous conditions, not just for the drivers, but also for emergency vehicles that we saw trying to get through the area. They were having a very difficult time getting through as well. So you're going to want to avoid I-70 just for your own safety and the safety of those emergency vehicles trying to travel as well. Back to you guys.
All right, Sloan Dickey tonight. Thank you, Sloan. Well, tonight, Aurora Fire Rescue Team members are barred from administering that powerful sedative ketamine, and it looks like it's going to stay that way.
The department says it has no plans to renew a state waiver that allowed the use of the drug.
Denver7 investigates looked into those waivers that allow medics to give ketamine outside a hospital. The sedative has been increasingly used in police arrests and in many cases administered when people were deemed to be out of control.
It was also the drug given to Elijah McClain, and he died, as you well know, after being detained by Aurora police in 2019. He was stopped while walking home from a convenience store. An independent report released in February confirmed what Denver7 investigates previously uncovered. McClain was given too much ketamine for his weight and size. In the wake of his death, city leaders put a temporary ban on the use of the sedative. Aurora Fire Rescue says the drug is not currently available for use by team members, and the waiver from the state which allowed the use expires next month.
Today, former Brooklyn Center, Minnesota police officer Kimberly Potter made her first court appearance. Potter, as you see, a white woman accused of fatally shooting Dwante Wright, a black man, during a traffic stop Sunday. She claims she thought she was firing her taser, not her gun. Wright's parents are demanding accountability, but they say no outcome will ever make them whole again.
We're still going to bury our son. We're still never going to be able to see our baby boy that we're never going to have again. So when people say justice, I just shake my head.
This case prompted multiple nights of protests and clashes with police in Minnesota.
And Denver faced its own racial justice protests last summer when the video surfaced showing the tragic death of George Floyd. He died after being pinned down for roughly 9 minutes by a Minneapolis police officer. And right now, that officer is being tried for murder and manslaughter.
And today, Denver's police chief sat down with our Addie Guajardo. And almost a year later, he's reflecting on Denver's response to that moment and what he wants to change in his department.
We're going to march together. We're going to march as one.
Arm in arm, last summer, Denver Police Chief Paul Pazin marched with protesters. Like so many, demanding change after George Floyd died at the hands of police.
We're all hurting.
He promised that change and community safety.
We are willing to stand with, to march with, and do the hard work that needs to take place for police reform.
But on Sunday, that sense of security was shattered once again when 20-year-old Dante Wright was fatally shot by a Minnesota officer.
It pains me, it pains our officers.
Chief Payson says he shares the community's frustration.
I share dejection when I see the unnecessary trauma and tragedies that have occurred far too often in our country.
Say his name! Dante Wright!
It is very much traumatizing.
Ashira Campbell, a Black Lives Matter activist, is leading a rally on Saturday to give a voice to communities of color in light of the latest death.
We're here to make sure that people's voices are being heard and to elaborate and to amplify that enough is enough, and we are fed up with the police killing us.
The shooting happened hundreds of miles away, but Dr. Anthony Young, a psychologist, says it's a reminder of the constant dangers people of color face.
Because their cultural experience resembles that of the person who was murdered. We realize that this could happen to any one of us at any time.
And Chief Payson knows change is needed so it doesn't happen here in Colorado.
It really erodes trust and relationships with our community.
Since the Black Lives Matter protests over the summer, the Denver Police Department banned the carotid chokehold. It now requires police officers to file reports in a timely manner when they display a weapon, and increased officer training to help officers better assess situations, including crowd control. Chief Payson also points to policy changes to prevent repeating mistakes made by other departments.
We want to avoid these mistakes, right? We don't want to focus and think that we got it all figured out. We need to pay attention.
He says it's vital for the community and the police department to communicate, to lead to solutions.
Peaceful protests, we 100% support.
And actions on behalf of his department.
If we respond, if we treat that person with respect and dignity, if their case is handled professionally, then that helps to build trust.
Chief Payson tells us his officers are currently going through taser training. In that Minnesota shooting video, you hear the officer yell taser and then fire off her gun. We also asked Chief Payson about diversity in his department. He tells us his officers either grew up in the communities that they serve or they live in those communities, but says they're always open for improvement. He hopes to also bring on more women to the force and says they're hiring. In Denver, Addie Guajardo, Denver7.
Tonight, a Loveland police officer is on administrative leave after being accused of using excessive force in the arrest of this 73-year-old woman with dementia. 2 other officers have been reassigned. An excessive force lawsuit was filed yesterday on behalf of Karen Garner. The lawsuit says she walked out of a Walmart in June without paying for roughly $14 worth of items. Her arm was broken and her shoulder was dislocated during the arrest. Loveland's police chief says he is taking the allegations seriously and is aggressively and rapidly investigating. The DA's office says it is reviewing the case and determining whether an independent criminal investigation should happen.
And video of that arrest is so hard to watch, and it's getting you talking.
So let's take a 360 look at some of the comments you sent to our Denver7 newsroom. Lynn says she's appalled, and none of these officers involved or interviewed have any clue how to work with seniors and the often invisible challenges they face. Robert sees it differently, writing, "The Loveland officers were dispatched to a shoplifter that, when confronted, kicked the officer, resisted arrest, and attempted to flee. Although my sympathy goes out to the elderly woman, the officer's actions were reasonable."
Jackie is focused on new legislation, writing, "There is a bill in the state legislature that deals with this. Behavioral health crisis response training. That bill calls for new training for those who deal with people with behavioral health needs." Well, tonight we're hearing from the Nathan Yip Foundation after the Villager's April Fool's article that some say played into racist tropes about Asians. And while defending its choice to run the article, the Villager pointed to its connections with the local Asian community. It highlighted its choice of Linda and Jimmy Yip, founders of the Nathan Yip Foundation, as its 2019 Villager Man and Woman of the Year. The foundation says past support does not erase current mistakes.
If the Villager is using our images and using our events to showcase the diversity that they've featured in the past, that's great, but it doesn't excuse the present and the fact that the Villager does need to address the problems that were printed in their April Fool's joke article.
In a statement on its website, the Villager says the content was poorly chosen and did not intend to offend the Asian American community.
How could there possibly be a 2-month backup to processing a check?
A property tax bill paid weeks ago, or so she thought.
It is a lot of money, and to tell me to write another check, there are people out there who can't just write another check.
Struggling to get answers, a Denver woman contacts Denver7.
It's really pretty simple. Just tell us what's happened.
So we get the heavy wet snow tonight. I'll let you know what the roads are going to be like tomorrow morning.